Mercedes' result at the Belgian GP was bitterly disappointing for the team and their fans. Their difficulties over Friday and Saturday were masked by the grid penalties given out to the cars above them, but that didn't save them on Sunday. Lewis Hamilton made a huge error trying to close the door on Alonso on lap 1, and George Russell was left to salvage what he could from the race. Do Mercedes stand a chance in Zandvoort? And is it really time for them to give up? Let's see what's going on. Heading to the summer break, Mercedes were full of confidence. They had been on the podium for 6 consecutive races, and in France and Hungary, both drivers had the chance to spray some champagne for the first time this season. It looked like all the hard work was paying off, and we weren't asking if they could win this season, we were discussing when they would get the win. The 7-times champion Lewis Hamilton has won a race in every season in which he's competed in F1 since 2007, the only driver to have held such a record, and before Belgium expressed his belief that he could challenge for victory this year. We have been improving this consistency from the recent races and the great progress the team is making, he said. Everyone pulling together and continuing to push. The car is more of a racing car, which is not particularly what it was at the beginning of the year. It's more like a racing car in its characteristics, which is a positive. Whatever work they did at their headquarters in Brackley over the summer break clearly didn't help though. George Russell took the first pole position of the season for the team in Hungary, and it seemed like Mercedes finally had the speed to match frontrunners Red Bull and Ferrari. But that seemed to just be a fleeting hint of what the W13 had to offer, as in Spa, that pace was nowhere to be found. Lewis Hamilton and teammate Russell ended up just 7th and 8th fastest. But of more concern was the fact that Hamilton was a whopping 1.838 seconds slower than pace setter Max Verstappen. Wolff said that such a dramatic change in fortunes for Mercedes since Hungary was not something that sat easy with him. You can't be on pole 3 weeks before, albeit for very different conditions, different track, and then be 1.8 seconds off the pace at the next one, he said. So there's something which we totally don't understand, or seem to get right. It's for me the worst qualifying session that I had in 10 years. It is probably worth remembering that during the 10 years Wolff is referring to, Mercedes were the dominant force in the sport. This season has seen a huge change in fortune for the team though, and clearly it isn't sitting well with him. Mercedes' no-pod side-pod concept has been the subject of heavy scrutiny all season, and the conversation about whether they need to give up on the concept for next year has never really subsided. But this is something we'll come back to shortly. First, let's see what the team had to say about the rest of the weekend. There are some big hints being dropped about what they might do next year as well. Having been so slow in qualifying, they were much quicker in the race, with George Russell taking 4th. It's very difficult to cope with these swings, Wolff said. We had a totally subpar performance in qualifying. Then in the race, sometimes we go 3 seconds a lap faster. There are big question marks about what is going on. It's not where we should be with the structure and knowledge to understand a racing car, but we don't with this one. This has been a big problem for the team this year. They've really struggled to properly understand what is happening with their concept on track. At the start of the year, they said their simulations pointed towards the car being a race winner right from the get-go. Lewis Hamilton even said he wasn't worried about his team making a mistake with the design because, and I quote, "My team don't make mistakes." This season looks like it will be the first in Hamilton's career that he won't pick up a race win though, and that has changed his tone. Hamilton said after qualifying that he could not wait for next year's car. But while their hopes have gone this season, the team have yet to make a firm decision on what route to follow with their new model. Wolff admitted it was far from a straightforward decision, and that changing a design concept was not a simple, nor guaranteed route to returning to being competitive. Whatever we decide for next year, it needs to be carefully evaluated, because clearly our data does not give us the results, doesn't correlate it with the reality, he said. We have massive swings in performance we can't really get on top of. In this moment, to take a decision for next year, changing a concept dramatically, how can you be sure that is the better direction to go? Because clearly you would be starting a way back. That is the crux of the issue for Mercedes. Restarting their entire concept would wipe away years worth of work and require a complete rebuild of the car from the chassis up for 2023. There isn't any guarantee that this would actually be an improvement. At this point though, the team still don't seem to understand how their car works, and if Wolff's aim is to win championships, then it doesn't matter if they come second or last, because anything short of first will be a failure for him. It isn't quite as simple as just attaching some side pods to the car and saying, voila, we've built a new car. The side pods are the obvious differentiator between the Mercedes car and the rest of the grid, but in reality, they're a bit of a red herring. In Formula 1, we only get to see a very small portion of the overall car, because everything is hidden away under the bodywork. This is especially true this season, with the ground effect floors having such a huge influence on the overall aero performance. When something is obviously different, like Mercedes side pods, it gets latched onto by everyone, and we all exclaim how crazy it is, but in Mercedes' case, it may not be the side pods that need changing. In reality, when Mercedes personnel have referred to a concept, they're probably thinking more about suspension geometry and floor shape, underneath and at the edge. Those are the things that are more powerful in determining the car performance, says trackside engineering director Andrew Shovlin. I think it has been useful to see that this narrow bodywork car can perform well in races, and this is certainly the thing that, for us, to take as a foundation for development, will be more effective if we work with what we've got, rather than try and hop to someone else's design. The side pods are probably a bit of a distraction from the overall issues we've had to fix. If Mercedes were to ditch the side pod design next season, it wouldn't be a change in concept, just a minor change to the overall aero design. The real indicator of a change in concept would be how the car performs at different ride heights. The 2022 Mercedes car only appears to hit peak performance when the car runs super close to the ground, which is why it's had such a problem with bouncing and the floor hitting the ground. Red Bull appears to be at the other end of the spectrum in being able to deliver its best performance at higher ride heights, which was one of the factors in it being so dominant around Spa-Francorchamps last weekend. If the team do decide to overhaul their car, we'll have to wait until next season to see if it has any effect. For now though, they need to think about what they can do for the rest of the season. Getting a first race win in the Netherlands at Max Verstappen's home Grand Prix would be a great way to show that they've at least made some progress this season. Toto Wolff sounds excited to take what they learned from their poor performance in Spa to Zandvoort and try to fight Red Bull and Ferrari for some more podium finishes. We've been working hard to understand our Spa struggles, and thankfully, we don't have long to wait until we can utilize and maximize those learnings. What will make the difference for the rest of this season is how quickly and effectively we can continue learning to deliver our best performance this year and next. They might be able to take their learnings to the Netherlands, but it's going to be down to George Russell to take the podium for the team. Lewis Hamilton's first lap crash at Spa was a heavy one, with the car being subjected to 45 Gs of vertical force. The Brit had a brand new engine in his car for the race in Belgium, but the level of force generated when he fell out of the air and back onto the track surface caused a serious coolant leak, which led to his retirement. The whole power unit and gearbox will need an inspection by the Mercedes team before Friday practice at Zandvoort, and if they think Hamilton needs anything replacing, it will result in a grid penalty. Is it time for Mercedes to give up on the 2022 concept and start afresh next season? And do you still believe they can get a race win this season? Let us know your predictions down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.